my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Manufacturing Transformed podcast. I'm your host, Paul Van Meter, and today we have a very honest and candid conversation with Ron Wallace of Ace Machining up in Nova Scotia, Canada. And Ron, like many machine shop owners and founders, is a smart, scrappy, talented machinist, welder, craftsman, and started his business and it kind of grew. And Ron thought all the way along for many years that, he was the best person to do any particular job. He could do it better than others that he might hire. And he has since learned, as many do, some don't, that that's just not the case. And actually getting ProShop was a forcing function, if you will, for him to hire a controller to kind of manage that part of the business, which really freed up his time to work on his business and pursue new technologies and sales and just the general growth of the business. So I think it's a very relatable conversation because so many manufacturing leaders have found themselves in that same spot. And some of you might still be in that spot today. So take a listen and enjoy this conversation with Ron Wallace. Hey there, Ron. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. I have admired Ace Machining from all the things that you guys post on LinkedIn and just the wide diversity of types of work that you clearly do. So for those that aren't as familiar, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit of the history of the shop, and then sort of what your business looks like today. What kind of size are you? What do you specialize in? That sort of thing.
Okay, for sure. Starting out long time ago, I'm a graduated high school and I'm a welder by trade. During my time, in high school, I worked in a hotel. I worked kind of midnight to 8 doing the accounting and whatnot, and kind of fell in love with accounting a bit and really enjoy working with my hands. Fast forward to 2008, in and out of management roles and whatnot. I wanted to buy a little shop that kind of wholesaled metal, just cut metal and sold the offcuts to machine shops and whatnot. Okay. And a guy had one running and we just couldn't quite come to a deal. So at the time, I have a business partner, Andy. We were talking and he said, well, why don't you just buy a machine shop? So I was like, okay, well, let's go down that road. And I just put an ad up I wanted to buy a shop in HRM. So we're in Nova Scotia, Canada, Eastern Canada. So I'm in HRM, kind of the largest center here. So I wanted to buy a shop here or one that I could just move the equipment in. I didn't really want to buy a business, but just the assets and then try and figure it out for myself. So we found a guy and he was getting ready to retire. So we struck a deal with him, bought some gear, couple mills, couple lathes, all the tooling, right? So it was kind of turnkey operation, found a place to set up shop and it was all manual equipment. And so at the time there was, we had kind of had a lathe guy, mill guy, and I was like the welder and the accountant. And, we modeled, so this is 2008 now. We got through year one and, everybody got a paycheck. I didn't make a lot of money, but, we got a paycheck and things went all right. So as we moved on there, we realized we were kind of set up in the back of an oil field shop's warehouse, right? On a month-to-month lease and really kind of didn't have great vision or plans of the future, just kind of like, well, let's get started and see where it goes, right? Well, they landed a big Exxon contract and they're like, okay, boys, time to go. You're in the way. And I'm like, wasn't expecting that. And they're like, well, you're month to month.
Got kicked out.
So got the boot and then you're like, oh, this is a problem. So we found another spot. We moved and we set up in the back of another shop and really we had like 1,500 square feet. We dropped down to like 700 square feet. Half our stuff was in a sea can. You're just like, it was a little depressing for a couple of years, right? You're like trying to figure this out. But the guy that we moved into, he's like, I'll build a building, you move in there. So, we moved in. So by the time that got built, we were back to 3,000 square feet. And I was like, at the time you're always like, man, that's a lot of space. Right. But, I always said you're like an iguana, you grow to fit your cage. Right. So we move into the building. He built the building and we took the first 2/3 of it. And cause I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I want road frontage, and another guy moved in the back, so we couldn't expand anymore. So as soon as we moved in, we were out of space. Like our 3,000 square feet was like gone. So I would say 2011. Now we bought another company. So now this is shop number 2 that I bought. He was a CNC guy, and he had a mill and a lathe, just a small mill, small CNC lathe. We didn't know anything about CNC, like not a clue, right? And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, we'll give it a try. And he was just a one-man show, and it's really difficult to be a one-man show, machine show. You can't be the accountant, the money collector, the bill writer, the material getter, and the machinist. It's really hard.
Okay.
You need a team. So we kind of bought his assets and then gave him a job to show us how to run the equipment. And then we ended up, so our CNC department was in like another building because we didn't have room in the main shop. So we ran that now till like 2015. There was a piece of land that was 2 acres, and they were next door to my at the time, my biggest customer. And I'm like, and the guy that we were renting from owned that piece of land, and I would go over once a week with a proposal, and I'm like, look, man, I want to buy that land. Like, here's what I think the land's worth. Yada yada. There's my calculations. And every week I was just like, Rick, you ready to sell? Ready to sell? So eventually he just said, look, Ron, if you pound sand, I'll sell you the land. I'm like, okay. So we bought the land. 2016, we started building the building. We built 15,000 square feet. And by this time, so I've already moved this. I'm moving into shop number 4, right? We've moved a lot. I've found that, yeah, I know. It's like we were like, we should have called ourselves Gypsy Machining, but didn't. Yeah, so I looked and I said, okay, what's the best scenario for a shop, right? And I know that in all the shops I've been in, we were always hunting for power. Never had enough power, never had enough. There were guys unplugging machines, standing there waiting, like, you done with that? I need to plug this one in, right? So when I built this, I'm like, I want 600 volt, 12, well, I guess for American guys, 480, whatever. But so I want 600 volt, 1200 amps. I want all the power in the world coming into this building. And then I'm like, I want it to be, narrow and long so that we can see a process flow through the shop, right? Because, some of the shops were like just kind of big square spaces, and there just didn't seem to be any organization.
Mm-hmm.
So 15,000 square feet, we, set up shop in here. And then when you're looking at that, you're like, man, that's a lot of space, right? Am I going to fill it? Like, and I was at the time, I'm like, I think I got to rent out space to pay the mortgage. And so we kind of struck a deal with a guy, but it fell apart. And I'm really glad it did, because that would have been just catastrophic to have another business in here, because we burned that space up fast, right? Because now you're the momentum's going, right? Like gears coming in, jobs are coming in, like things are just starting to move forward again to 2020. We're like, okay, we need to expand again. And when 2020 hits, I bought a second water jet. COVID hit. The day we were setting up the water jet, the last day he was doing the install, the technician, he went home, province shut down. I'm like, oh man, I will be bankrupt tomorrow. And then the next day, the Sunday, that was like Saturday, they shut us down. And I thought, I don't know where the world's going to go. We landed the contract to cut all the plexiglass for the local grocery stores. And then we started, like, I was like, oh man, that's great. I'm the only guy with a machine with nothing to do. Right. So we started pumping out the plastic, and we had planned in 2020 to expand the building, but COVID hit. So we put that up. We'd already kind of started looking at another 15,000 square feet. So by September of 2020, things were just booming. We said, yeah, let's pull the pin on the building. And we went so now we're 31,000 square feet, 41 guys, lots of gear, lots of, we're trying to bring automation and advanced manufacturing to Eastern Canada. There's not a lot here. Like, and I just see, where the future's going, and we need to try and stay on top of it for sure. So it's been a fun ride so far.
Yeah, that is not boring. at all. That
No.
is a mile a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. So I could probably go on for hours about all the chaos that happened in between those little highlights.
I've never heard of a shop that's moved as many times as you have.
Yeah, and then
in such a
and
short
actually,
period.
yeah, and then so and and then we bought, fast forward like in between there, we bought another shop and moved their gear in, and then just last in December, I just bought, like, I guess it would be my fourth shop, and moved his gear in.
Wow.
That's brought us in a couple large Haas, a VF4 and a VF5. Plus, he came on board with us, right? So it's like you're getting the equipment and the skill, right? Which
Yeah.
is, it's always guys selling machines are always in here. Oh, I want to buy a machine. I'm like, sell me an operator and I'll buy a machine, right? But now,
Sure.
we're not really stopping. We're just
That's pretty cool.
moving.
So tell me what you guys specialize in and sort of the broad range of equipment now.
So, okay. So another thing, like kind of being in Eastern Canada, we are a little removed from everybody. My customers they send you a work package, and the work package has everything in it. You've got to figure it out how to get it done, right? So we've built a shop that, we have some manual gear. The manual section is coming down a bit, is shrinking a bit. It's filling up with CNC. So we have manual, we have CNC, we have water jet profile cutting, welding, and fabrication, plate rolling, bending. And just because when we get a package from a customer, they're just like, you figured it out, right?
You got to do all of it. Yeah.
So we've had to really, I know in some larger centers, you might go to a shop and they're like a mill shop or a turn shop, because the turn shop's next, or the mill shop's next door, right? So
Sure.
It's super easy to divide that work up. But down here, it's not. And then 2 years ago, we added a Swiss lathe. That's the first one in Eastern Canada, like, and
Really?
in a job shop scenario. We brought 5-axis in 2020, I think. And when I brought a 5-axis, that was scary, right? Because you're like, man, there's like
a lot going on.
There's so much going on. But now it's like when you look at a job and go, oh man, it's 5-axis, 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 and you're like, it's got to go in the 5-axis, right? So it just took a minute to get over that. And the same thing with the Swiss, right? Like, I didn't understand Swiss at all, like, until, like, I would say it was 3 years ago when I first saw one. And I always, naively, I assumed a Swiss lathe made Swiss watch parts. And if it wasn't bigger than a micron, and I'm like, man, I've never even seen a part that small. So why would I want one? Right. But I went and I saw one, and this guy was making bolts. He was just pumping out bolts. And I'm like, man, that is so fast. And he's like, and it's just like, and then I'm like, I make a part so similar to that, and I'm making, 700 of them a month, and they're taking like 12 minutes a piece. And I'm like, it was this miserable little 17.4 pin with a radius and a thread. And it was just, and we're running them in a lathe, and you're trying to hold the tolerance. And I'm like, man, and I said to the guy, I said, would you do these for me? Like, if I send them to you? And he's like, nope, I just do my own stuff, right? I make my own parts. I don't work for anyone else. And I'm like, I get that. So I started the process of finding shops that would do the work for me. And I found a shop and sent him some parts, and he did the first batch, and they came back, and I'm like, man, that's just, the price was right. It was like, oh, I'll just sub this out. I sent him the next order and upped it, or kind of doubled the order. And then, man, he wouldn't answer the phone. He wasn't answering emails. I thought the guy, I called up and I said, where's Bill? Like, where'd he go? And did he quit? And they're like, no, he owns the place. And I'm like, well, he doesn't respond to me. And they're like, they're so busy, they just wouldn't take my time. Right. So I found another shop, and then that guy's like, he's like, oh, I'll get those parts done. He never got them done. Right. So I was like, fair enough. I'm buying a Swiss lathe. Right. So through the whole process, I, found the Tornos, and they've been just amazing to deal with. The machines, I just love it. Right now you see it, but the learning curve was crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
It was just, steep learning curve, and everything. As soon as you say it's Swiss tooling, man, they just put like another 10 grand on it. They're like, all right, that's another 10 grand, buddy. But like, so it's expensive, but once you're there, man, when you see parts ripping off there, it's like, man, it's exciting. Still like probably one of my favorite machines in the shop now when it's just pumping parts, right?
Yeah, it runs all night long, possibly.
Yeah. And it's like, well, now it's an animal. Like you really got to feed it. Like it's hungry, right? Like, I would say I'm probably, even now it's like, it's only 70%. Like I still got capacity in it. It's hard to, it's a hard animal. And then the selling point of trying to sell that local, it's a tough sale because locally, like, and again, we're on, since I have the only one, people are like, oh, you're full of shit. You can make them that fast. Right. And I'm like, give me a shot. Let me try. Right. I don't know. The deniers out there are like, man, I don't think it's because they're like me. I was like, man, that's snake oil. Right. So
Swiss deniers.
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, it's a crazy world, right?
So I'm just curious. That pin was 12 minutes in the lathe. Can you share what it took?
Yeah. Now I'm down to like I think a minute 40.
What?
Yeah, like crazy fast. Man, spitting them things out left, right, and center. It's like
nuts.
Like it's yeah. Now, that being said, the lathe that I was running on was not the greatest of lathes, but
sure.
I think if you like, it was it just wasn't a great lathe, but say a really good lathe, you probably still only realize, maybe 6 minutes, right? Sure. Like in a really good lathe, right? Yeah, and then, but in the Swiss, it just, it's,
awesome.
So yeah, that's just. And now I'm making like 1,500 of them a month. Like, so the orders of those things have just gone up, right? So it just spits them out, right?
So you bought many shops, you've grown quite a bit. You're in a pretty good sized facility now. Tell me a little bit about how you decided you needed some kind of different management system software to run the shop. How did that go?
So this circle back to me being like kind of the accountant / welder, right? So starting out, I'm a numbers guy, maybe a bit autistic. I don't know, something going on in my head. You got demons running around in there like crazy. So I'm doing the accounting and I'm doing the welding, and then eventually you hire a welder, and then you get another welder, and then eventually I'm no longer welding, and I'm doing more of the accounting and business planning and scheduling of the staff and checking stuff. And it's like it's minuscule growth. So I started with simply accounting was my, which I guess is now Sage 50, depending on, how old you are, or how far down the road you are. So I'm a creature of habit. Nobody likes change, right? Like I think back to when we built the building, we hired a guy to come in and do 5S training. And initially I was so resistant of that. Like we were building this building and I'm hiring a guy and he's going to come in and tell me how to lay out my shop. And I'm like, what do you know about machining? What do you know about welding? You don't, and he's like, it's not really about me knowing how to make a part. It's just knowing how to move something from one end of the building to the other end of the building the most efficient way. So going through that process with him just really opened my eyes that, look, I am not the smartest. Like there's smarter people out there than me, or that can help you, right? Like they can just help you, even though you're like kind of resistant. You're like, I can figure it out myself, right? So with me doing the accounting, and we hired a receptionist to do some of the data entry stuff, like to put like I used to just come in nights and weekends and type in the receipts and the bills and pay the bills, write the checks, do all that stuff. So through the progress of growing, and the same thing, like our quality control department, we never really, starting out, you don't have a quality control. You got a guy machining parts, and then you say, okay, today you go stand up in the quality table and measure. And it's like, well, in your mind, if you've read a drawing wrong once, you can look at it 10,000 times and it's still going to be wrong in your head, but until you need an unbiased set of eyes to look at it and go, oh, hey, that's wrong. You go, oh shit. Right. So we were always, and that was another eye-opening moment for me, was like I was always trying to hire a machinist, but I was taking a machinist off the floor to do quality control. And then I thought to myself, why don't I just look for a quality control guy? Well, a guy applied, and I'm like, wow, this guy's got experience. And then I'm like, it's almost like you gained a machinist because I wasn't taking him
off the floor.
I'm not taking one off the floor to measure parts that that he probably already made wrong. So, so so going on to like these processes that we went through year over year and realizing that bringing this stuff in really helps versus, your own mind, I can do it all. I don't need help. Right. And that's what I always struggle with is like, man, no one can do it better than me. Right. When we started, I had seen years ago was another shop and they were using CISPro. And I didn't really have a full understanding of that, but what kind of really, drove me towards ProShop, the main thing was the integration with Sage 50. And I'm like, I don't have to learn a new accounting system. I just have to learn I could kind of, because again, it's like, where do I find the time to do all this stuff? So when we bought into, and I had looked at a few other shops, but I kept circling back to ProShop. Like it just like, when you like Sage 50 offers an ERP system, but it's like, well, again, you go back to what do they know about a machine shop, right?
Not for machine shops.
Yeah. No, it's not. And it's like, if I had a store selling lettuce all day long, then yeah, 100%. That one's going to work. Right. Sure. But we're making, and then going back to like us being like a true job shop that's doing, like I said, you're doing machining, you're doing CNC, you're doing Swiss turn, you're doing water jet, you're doing welding, right? Had to have something that kind of covered everything. And since we were like, so, I mean, ProShop just kind of made sense. Now, as we bought into the ProShop, and then I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, it's like, where do I find the time? And I have to thank ultimately ProShop because it forced my hand into, we hired a controller, Les. And I know you've worked with Les a lot, and he's been spearheading the ProShop rollout. He's like taken over all my like basic, like all the accounting stuff that was bogging me down. And that's really helped me grow as a person and grow sales and help, build the business and add these extra things in and focus on the Swiss and focus on stuff that I probably wouldn't have had time to do because we were, or I would have been buried with trying to figure out this new software. So that I got to thank you for, because Les has been a huge asset, right? You reach a certain point where again, I can't do it all myself. Right. And I just, and it's hard to say I need help, right? Until till one day you get some help and then you're like, oh, fuck, should have had that a while ago. Right. But here we are, everything has everything worked out for a reason. Right. So,
yeah, it's funny. It resonates so much. I mean, I've seen this play out time and time again in shops all around the North America. But yeah, Mike Payne and I on Making Chips just recently recorded an episode about why shops, maybe that was By the Numbers. I can't remember which podcast. There's too many podcasts.
Yeah.
About why so many shops cap out at like $2 million, $3 million or whatever, because the owner is doing everything. And
exactly. And that's what that's
of it. And
right. And it's hard to do it alone. And it's like I say, I've bought 4 shops of guys that were trying to go it alone. Right. And that's why, like, my business partner, Andy Race, like, Andy's a machinist by trade. Right. And so we complement one another very well. Right. Like, he's, he understands, like, if there's something with, like, even today, would I consider myself a machinist? I would say yes, because many years I stood in front of a milling machine. Now, I mean, I always ask guys when I'm hiring, like, you mill guy or lathe guy, right? Like, I really resonated with a mill, didn't resonate so much with the lathe. Could I make something round on a lathe? Yes. Could I make it right? Yeah. But is it going to take me forever? 100%. Right. So, but put me on a mill and I can pump out chips, even today, right? I can go down there, figure it out, get it running. But when it comes to welding, I still understand that. But the business side was really my thing. So Andy, him being the machinist, he understands the turning, the milling, right? And we really complement one another. We can quote parts. I see things changing significantly in the future. AI is going to play a major role in everything we do around the world, like whatever, right? I don't know. I picture, 16-year-old Ron at school with ChatGTP, man, baby. I don't know if I would have made, it would have been ChatGPT would be walking down the aisle getting the diploma, not me, right? So, but that's just, that's 16-year-old Ron, right? I was a bit of a troublemaker. So here we are. But so I'm just saying, like, that what we'll see, what I envision in the, like, stuff's moving at light speed, three additive manufacturing. Like that's, we're soon going to be a Star Trek level stuff, right? Like, give me this and boom, there it will be, right? IMTS this year, you walked around IMTS and it was like additive manufacturing, cobots, and 3D scanning seemed to be the things that were just, and softwares that were just popping out at me. Like, where do we go and what's the future going to hold, right? It's 5 years from now at IMTS going to be a different story again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, it's very cool that you bought all those shops, but you saw the necessity to get someone to cover some of the tasks that you were doing but aren't essential for you to do, so you can focus on the more strategic things, that sales and marketing, the growth, new equipment, figuring out the processes. And thank you for choosing ProShop to be a part of that.
It's been a welcome addition for sure, right? And I know, like just, I had great visions of the paperless, because that was the other thing. Like, you see that blueprint on Nick's table, and it's got chips and coolant been spraying on it, a coffee cup's been sitting on it, and you look at it and go, what the fuck's that number, right? It's a photocopy of a photocopy from whatever, right? Like, having that screen next to them, like, we put these little, I think I'm going to get it, I hope I get the name right, but little mimics computers, solid state, no moving parts in them, hard drives, and a screen. Like, your cost investment in that screen, but it's right there next to the guy, and he can pull up PDF. Boom, he can zoom. That's the other thing. Like, my guys are all, they're older guys. They're all going blind, right? So, and they got safety glasses on. They got whatever coolant. They're so it's just nice to be able to zoom something in, right? Rather than I walked around, you see guys like looking at prints and stuff. So that was another thing that really just was like, hey, this one going back to versus like the Sage 50 type ERP doesn't equate to a machine shop like ProShop,
right?
Does when it comes to and then having pictures of setups, because job shop, again, we get a lot of repeat parts, right? Guys are able to do a setup, take a picture, stick it in there, save it on the file, save instructions on, hey, I did this, and this. The next time it comes in, it's like we would do stuff time and time again, and then it's like every time it came in, it's like you'd never done it before, and it's like don't you remember doing that last time? No, I just figured it, right? But if you have a picture, it's just like, oh yeah, there it is, right? Like, so
have you seen setup times get reduced because that knowledge has been saved and it transfers into, oh yeah, that's the type of work holding I did, and
like
where the program is, or whatever.
Yeah, and then the setup time's reduced. We've organization, like, we've really built up our quality department. Like, we have two members of quality control that and they've got their own room, climate controlled now, like, really gone, CMM, vision system, and then we'll take even to some jobs that are consistent repeat parts, like we're packing up the fixtures and boxing it and having that there so that they can just revert back. It's got, job number, partner, they pull that out, set it up, look at the, like, how the last guy, and then, but there's still guys down there going, I think I can do this better. And it's like, so I'm very supportive of guys that are like we don't rule with an iron fist. I'm like, if you can do it better, man, I'm not gonna shut you down. We safety here is number one. We just had our audit. I just got the results today. We had our safety meeting this morning. We had an audit yesterday. 100% fourth year in a row safety, right? So I tell my guys, I don't care if it takes you longer, you're doing it safe, right? Because you know yourself, there's a lot of gear out there that'll turn you to liquid.
Yeah.
And I don't want that on my conscience. It's just a job. Come to work, go home safe, everybody, every day, right? And if we can, we can instill that in our guys. So when it comes to setup, if a guy comes to me and says, look, man, I think I can do that better, faster, go ahead. But, you show me results, right? Now I can truly see results, where before it was like, did he do it faster? I don't know. Maybe. Because before we were just writing it down on, and then you're banking on dude's memory, right? Like, did you spend 8 hours on it, or did you spend 16? Right?
Sure.
Like, how many days, right? So having it in the software and logging their times is like, we're starting to see, where did you lose money on jobs? A lot of quoting. We do a lot of quoting here. So, you win some, you lose some, right? And it's always been like, we've had customers that'll send you packages and through the years, and you can get frustrated with customers because you quote 20 parts and you screw up on 3 of them, and then you get a PO for the 3 parts that you're like, fuck, man, I fucked those up. And now you're punishing me. You don't give me any cherries. You're just giving me the and then there were times that we had a couple customers that you have to kind of go back to and say, look, okay, I'm just quoting the whole package, giving one price.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we want an individual part price. I'm like, well, like every time I give you individual parts price, you give me the ones I screwed up on, and I'm not making any money. And profit's not a bad word. Like, you need to say that to your customers. Like you guys make a profit, we need to make a profit. We're not making a profit, we're not going to be here, and you're not going to get your parts. And then where are they going to come from, right? Like, once you start adding shipping or whatever, like, the game changes. So it's not a bad thing for people to make money.
Yeah, your good customers should want you to be profitable, 100%.
Right. And and if they don't, then you don't need them as a customer, right? If you're struggling, if they're always beating you up, it's time to go find another one, right? And it's just there's lots of work out there. I know, certainly in the times we are now, I don't think anybody, if you put the time in, you'll find the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that being said, the first 10 years of this, your nights and weekends, they disappear. Right.
Yeah.
You got to have a very supportive family. I must say my wife has put up with a lot of stuff that I don't think other people would put up with. That, I got to go to work. I got to, I've been in here on Christmas Day because I didn't want to call my staff in on Christmas Day to work for customers. Right. And that goes back to being a job shop. Right. And we really try to treat your staff right. I always tell people, like, until you win the lotto, you've got to work. So you need to be happy doing what you do. And if you want to chase butterflies up a hill, then by all means go do it, because life is, this long or this long. You don't know. So be happy, do something you love.
I love that. That's awesome. And so hearing you talk about, hiring less, and then new quality control and CMMs and business systems, and like, you've invested a lot into the infrastructure and the team for this business just in the last few years. It's like, it's been sounds like a pretty rapid change.
I would say we're really aggressive. Like, I don't like, the one good thing about me and Andy, like, I see it all the time. Guys, they start a business, and the next thing you know, they're driving around in a, brand new truck, $100,000 truck, and they're spending money, like, and the company is just scraping by, right? Like, Andy and I are definitely, like, I would say, like, if people had a fetish, ours is machines and tooling and equipment and that kind of stuff. So we pour the money back in here. We invest in the staff, we invest in training, invest in, and it's just like, I really like seeing the cool stuff, right? Because there's and could I started this business. I left a job I had. I had an F-250 and crew cab drive, and then when I started this thing, I drove a Toyota Echo for like 4 years, like that, and it was like a 2003. Like that is, you really like I'm throwing steel in the back seat of this thing, like trying to get around that. Like I'm telling you, it's really it corrects you. And would I have loved to have had a brand new truck during that time? It's like, no, it didn't. 100%, but it didn't make sense for the business, right? So you save your money, put it into the business, and see where you're at now, and having that equipment and stuff, like just bringing it to the east coast of Canada, right? Because it's stuff I have here, man, is in Ontario or wherever larger city, like it's just everybody's got it. But when you bring a 5-axis mill to Eastern Canada, it's like, all the staff, everybody's scared to death of it. Like you were literally like, but once you turn it on and go, wow, that's what is cool, right?
Yeah, very cool. I love that.
Having the ERP system, like even just yesterday, I had some new customers in yesterday. We tour the shop. I show them. We get down to kind of our receiving area where all our material comes in. So our material comes into kind of bay door number 3. Do we unload, and that's kind of our saw department. So from there, the guys, they saw cut everything. But as soon as it comes off the truck, there's a computer there, ProShop. They log in, load in the material, the certs, everything's there. And then that's the other thing, like mill certs. Having mill certs, and man, I got a filing cabinet downstairs that was like full of mill certs. Now you find a mill cert that's 3 months old in a filing cabinet. Just digging up paperwork was a nightmare. And now it's like, everything. We never even had, we didn't have purchase orders, right? We just say, like, I call up the local metal supplier, and I would be like, I need 6 feet of 2-inch brass, right? Like, okay. And you send someone over to pick it up, right? And then it's like, I'd be running around here and I get the invoice for it. And then I'm like, well, and Greg went and picked it up, and who knows what he did with the packing slip. And then I'd call them up and I said, well, I don't have a packing slip for this. And then the time that's wasted back and forth, and it's not fair to the supplier to say, hey, I don't have, do you have a signed copy? Like who picked that up? Did we pick it up? Did someone order it? What job was it for?
Because you can't find it.
Yeah, and then nobody really knew what job it was for. You just took it for granted that it I quoted the job, I bought the material, and it happened.
Right.
And we got paid, right? Like that was prior to ProShop. That was it. So now, and then that being said, we have Palak, who's she's really kind of spearheaded a lot of the ProShop stuff now. Like when it comes to, I just, like this morning, I just said, Black, I need to order this, and this against this job, get 3 quotes from some local suppliers and and then order it. Right. And just find the best price. I got to have it, and she sorts it out, sends out the purchase order. It all comes back. And then when it arrives, it's got that purchase order, the pack, the mill certs, or everything is just there. Whereas before it would be, we would do a job for a customer, and 3 months time, they're like, I need the mill cert for that material you did 3 months ago. Cause some of our jobs we do, and they go sit on a floor for 3 months before they install or use or whatever. And then you're like, oh man, who did I buy that from? Where did, like you talk about setup times, back end office time, looking for stuff that, and then like that would generally kind of fall on me, right? Because I would be like, rummaging through the filing cabinets because, the guys are out making parts, and like it's so, or
that's not,
going back.
That's not helping you win new customers or buy a Swiss, or you're just
no, exactly. You're just, yeah. It's just like, so, but you always, like you say, it took years for me to train your brain to be like, there's help out there, right? Or there's a better way than what you, and once you can flip that switch to say, maybe someone else has got a better way, right? because it's easy to say
Yeah.
I'm the guy and I know it all, right? So
That's so, so common.
yeah,
Hearing you say it, letting people hear it, I think
yeah,
will help them come to that same conclusion that they don't need to do it alone. They're
no,
not the best at everything in the world. They
yeah,
should be. There's a book. There's a million books on it, I'm sure, but one of the books of sort of one of my mentors called "Buy Back Your Time," Ken
right,
Martell, and the idea, if you are stuck doing $10 tasks, $10 an hour tasks, rummaging through filing cabinets, then you're not spending time doing the $100 or the $1,000 an hour tasks that are really moving your business forward. Right.
right, and
Yeah.
that was like one of the major eye openers for us was like hiring a receptionist, because you look at a receptionist and go, she's not making a part. She just sitting there sucking up money. I got to pay her. She's sitting there, it's just costing me money, right? And then you're like, well, what if she answered the phone? And what if she, so then it didn't have a job description, I didn't know anything, I'm like, like it was just, there was like, we had a phone and, if it like, for years, there'd be me and Andy standing at a milling machine or a milling lathe, and the shop phones with us there, right? Someone call, run in the office, write some notes, right? And then you're like, okay, well, if we hired her, and then it's like, wait, I have time now to do something different, right? And then, so every time you bring someone in, and now, like, we've got a production coordinator, we've got, you know, like, so outside of the investment in equipment, it's been an investment in people, right? And I always found like some people they're scared of automation or improvements and that kind of stuff, because they like, well, it's going to put people out of work. And I'm like, never once has a piece of equipment put someone, it's just increased throughput, which then increases staff, right? Like, we bought a cobot welder, right?
Mhm.
And you're thinking, okay, and it's like, is one of the welders going to lose? Well, man, I got more stuff coming through. It's like I got to, that beefed up my water jets. My water jets are pumping out more parts to feed. Like, now everything needs to be fed. It's like the Swiss lathe. You got to feed it. You got to feed these animals need to be fed, and people have to be there to feed them along the way, right? And
Yeah, you bet.
like our, I should know these numbers offhand, but we've got 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us in the front office now. That
Mm-hmm.
Prior to ProShop, there was 3 of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying ProShop did that. Like, that's that. I know that probably came off wrong, didn't it? But with that, like I said, I brought in a controller. But our sales have gone, from here to here, right?
Yeah.
So, and it reverts back to our quality control. I never had a quality control person. Now I have 2, right? So, and then that was another thing. Like, you look at quality control and go, man, that cost me money, right?
Yeah.
To have someone standing there,
yeah, exactly.
standing there checking parts. But then we do multi-op checks. They pay for themselves because there's less mistakes. There's less scrap on the floor. There's less junk going in the steel bin. When you go out and, you walk out and look in the steel bin and it's chips, you go out and look in the steel bin and it's chips and parts, you're like, fuck, right? That's when it's like, that sucks. So having, and it's just all these steps that you find, and you find and having the right team of people grows the business.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, I love, you just shared so many really valuable things just in such a clear, concise, relatable way. I love it. So going back to things you said a little while ago about, you'd buy material without a PO, it would show up, you'd make the parts, and, you'd deliver them. Sounds like you had no way to do job costing, to have no way which jobs made money, which jobs were losers, other than
100%,
other than a gut feel that, like, that's $1,000 job. It shouldn't be on sitting on the machine for 4 days straight. Like,
right,
what the hell?
right. And then, like, we had time sheets, right? So we would, we get the guys to, like, they would write it. But again, like, you're going back to, like, did he spill a cup of coffee on it? Like, who wrote that? Like, and then, like, and then you go out and you look at it and go, that's got only, like a mill guy, for example. I only see his time on there, but obviously there was some lathe work done on that. So you run around and say, who did the lathe work on this, right? And then, so, you're walking through the shop. Another thing that I like now is like, you're 32,000 square feet, right? Now I got a customer comes to the door, and we have a lot of jobs that are multi-op, right? Like, or multi-station, right? Yeah. And so when a customer comes in, they're like, yeah, where's my part at? And I'm like, fuck, I don't know. Now I walk and I start, and I'm like, you got this job? You got this job? Anybody seen this job? Right? And you're walking through, and you go and you talk to everybody until you find it. Well, now you just log in and go, okay, well, Jonathan was the last guy to work on that part. Okay. So you can kind of I can not spend an hour of my day walking around looking for stuff. You can beeline it in, and that's where, I don't want to, like, it makes you sound, you don't want to walk through your shop, right? But your day is so many hours in the day, and if you're spending half of it just wandering around looking for stuff, that's time lost. Like business, you don't get that time back. You can't, like I always said, we can build anything. I can make anything, but I can't make time unless you get, stuff like ProShop or faster machines or whatever. Like, how do you make time in the day? Right. Mm-hmm. It's so anything that we can do that's less time, get us to the end game.
Yeah, you bet. You mentioned customers a couple of times. Have you done like audits with customers, or, when you're trying to win a new customer, you bring them in for a tour, and has ProShop sort of played a role in any of that?
It has. It's because we're not cowboys anymore, right? Like, it's key. Like I say, every time a customer comes in, it's like, I don't want to say like I focus on, like, it goes back to where our materials received, that kind of workstation. Like, even though, like, every machine has a workstation at it, but that one is where I say, okay, when the material comes in here, your stuff is recorded right into that computer, checked off, did it arrive, and that's key, especially, customers want to know, like, we really don't hold inventory. Like any inventory I kind of have is usually like an offcut from a job or whatever, right? But we generally kind of don't have inventory, so it's all just in time inventory, and we want to, that is reassuring to a customer to say, okay, well, they're tracing the material rather than just like I say before, we were cowboys, man. Mm-hmm. You just like, go pick that up, bring it back, cut it up. Where did it go? I don't know, man. It's around here somewhere, right? Sure. And so now everything has, and the guys, the paint markers, being the welding shop, like, so the big thing that I liked was the paperless. It's difficult to go paperless on the welders. I will say, like, I don't know if they'll ever be paperless
with the drawings. You mean
with a drawing, like, they're, because I can't really set a computer on the table that they're welding on. They're still always like that department, as far as the guys pumping stuff out, are still going to need that physical drawing. I don't, we really, like, the ProShop is still there, available. It's we have a couple workstations close to their tables, but we're still printing the drawings for them, and
super common.
They're going to, so that's just, the dream of being fully paperless. Like my water jets, during the rollout, let's call it, of ProShop, mm-hmm. we kind of, you do the crawl, walk, run phase of it all. We took my water jet department, so we have 3 water jets, 2 or 5 axes, and there's 3 guys down there. They're already they're almost their own little business, right? So it was easy for them to say, okay, we're going to start bringing the material in, just start with the water jet. And I would recommend this to anybody that decides to jump in on this, that you start small. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just me. Some people maybe just go, like, tear the Band-Aid off and dive right in, but pick an area of your shop. Like if you're a mill lathe CNC shop, maybe just start with the mills, then or lathes and a couple guys and get it dialed and get your system dialed and say, okay, I'm just going to start with these guys. And onboarding the staff, it's like anything. Everybody's like, it's new, it's different. And a couple guys like, man, you're tracking me all the time. Am I going to get paid? And it's like, man, you're still going to get paid, right? It's like we just need to know, right? Like, so I'm not going to say you're not going to have resistance. You're going to have resistance, right? That's
Sure.
like anybody, right? There's always that old guy in the corner that's, man, fucking man, they're to get me, right? Like, so, like that's just human nature, right? So, just talking to your team and telling them that, hey, this is all, it's all for the benefit of everyone, right?
Absolutely.
It's not,
company succeeds, they're going to succeed better.
Right.
Yeah.
They've all got a phone in their pocket. So it's like, 20 years ago you didn't. So let's move with it. Right. And that's just the thing, right? I guess so. Embracing technology is a key, and it goes back to, I think, one of my earlier comments about, like, a lot of guys, they start with a mill and a lathe and working in their garage, and the next thing you know, they got a business and don't know how they got there, right? You just wake up one day and you're like, oh man, it's like, now we're like, it's an animal, like it needs to be fed, right? You got to feed it, and you go down there, the work's coming. It's the, people need to have their positions. They need to have responsibilities and finding the right people.
Specialization systems, processes.
Yeah. And I can, like, we did, the 5S training. The guy talked about, like, that never really clicked with me until the guy talked about making toast one day. And I'm like, make a toast. And he's like, he showed me this video of a guy that, went to the fridge and got a loaf of bread and brought it over. And then he went to the cupboard and got the toaster and brought it over. And then he went back to the fridge, got the butter. And he spent 5 minutes getting all this stuff that he could have done in one trip. Right. Yeah. So if you can minimize those trips.
Absolutely.
It saves time. It saves that constant need of trying to find employees. If you can make everybody more efficient, maybe you don't need that next machinist, right? And I'm not trying to not hire people, but
clearly, you're
for the last,
them, but but
it's been so difficult to find people. So how do you make yourself the most efficient you can be with the team you have? And then start looking for people, right? Like, if you can, be as efficient as you can be.
I love it. Well, Ron, you're a great storyteller and very funny. I've laughed probably more than many episodes during this hour.
Well, I'm glad. So it's been a fun ride for sure, right?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds, the name of this podcast is Manufacturing Transformed, and it sure sounds like in the last several years, your business has truly transformed from that cowboy shop to, this system-based process, more modern, 5-axis software. It's an honor to be a part of that journey and help you kind of mature your business to that next level. And, hearing you tell the story is just super fun and rewarding.
Oh yeah, no, I say, and I appreciate it. I appreciate, like, everything that industry's doing for the trade. Like, I really, really appreciate you helping out the school. I see the thank a machinist thing. I think I ran into you at IMTS there. I got a couple, brought some stickers back, gave them to the guys, right? I gave one to my son. He's got one on the back of his car. And, and there's some, like, my son's 16 years old, right? And I'm like, look, you can do whatever you want, right? What do you want to do? And, and he's like, well, Dad, I think I'd like to go into trades. And I'm like, then great, right? Let's talk about the trades. Like, I don't want to force him into, this business or whatever. I said, you need it. And, and he went through it all, and he logically thought through, what do I want to do? What trade's going to exist? I don't think, like, AI is going to replace, like, coding. It's going to replace insurance actuaries. I think a lot of jobs are going to kind of be different and disappear. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I think I want to be a tower crane operator. And I'm like, great. But he comes every summer, and he's been coming here since he's 12, and he'll jump in and work a machine, and put a full day. And, he took that sticker, and he's got his car, and he's like, put it on the car, and he's like, man, I go to school.
It makes my day.
Yeah, no, it's like everybody, he goes to school and he's telling everybody, oh man, I'm a machinist and blah, blah, blah. And so even though he doesn't, right now, I mean, when I was 16, man, I didn't know what I was going to do. Right. So
Sure.
I feel like he's on a track that he knows what he wants to do, but if whatever, he could do what he's going to do. But I, everybody that supports the trade, I'm a big believer in it, and I try my best to support the trade as much as we can to get people in here and build it back up. Right.
Mm-hmm. So essential.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing great work over there. Just excited for your success at ACE. If people want to learn more about ACE, reach out. Maybe they need some 5-axis water jet cutting or some Swiss.
Yeah.
How do they reach out and find out more?
You can go to our website. It's acemachining.ca. So Canada.
Okay.
Yay. And you can find us on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, but we're not the greatest on Instagram. I don't know, man. Maybe I need to get a kid in here to do that stuff, right? But I try, but I think, like I say, just hitting us up on our website. There's some great videos. You can tour our shop we got a nice video of the shop. You can see everything that's going on. The videos, I think maybe I've got, like I say, a couple new hosses in here. It's and you're like an iguana, you grow to fit your cage. It's getting tight, but we're all, you always find the room, right? And equipment comes, equipment goes. You find what's new and exciting, right? So
that's the life of a job shop. You bet.
Yeah. And I thanks for having me on for sure. Right. Like I say, I do appreciate it.
Well, you shared a lot of really important things today. And I know there's listeners out there that will benefit from hearing firsthand about, growing and deciding that you need to delegate and hire people and build the systems and don't do it all alone. Because
that's
too
key,
many
right?
shops that just hit their head against the ceiling of growth.
Right. And we hit that too. Like we had reached like a plateau and you're just like, man, I can't do anymore. Right. And it's like, and I think, having you guys come on was like the timing, and then that brought less on, I was going to do it myself. I'm like, I'm going to, because you're just like, and you keep taking more on and on and on. And you're just like, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Until eventually you can't do it anymore, right? Like you're just the gas tank fills up, right? I'd like to think there's always room for more, right? But then you focus on what you're good at, right? And let this stuff, and the guys in the shop, really, there was no kickback, right? That was my biggest fear, was like, I'm going to buy this stuff and I'm going to put it in the shop and they're going, fuck you, Ron, I'm not doing that. And then if we throwing money against the wall and it doesn't stick, right? But we had no one push back on it. And there were, everybody's got a couple guys, and you're like, man, don't know about him. He's going to be the guy to say, no way, right? But man, we didn't have anybody nobody. They all embraced it. Some were slower learners than others, but they did it, right?
Well, I'm sure that speaks to the culture you have and the people you've attracted and put into your business. So good for you on that. That's awesome. Well, Ron, thank you very much for the time today. I think it's a great place to wrap it up. acemachining.ca. Thanks again for sharing your journey with us.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.